Hello everybody, back once again with another video. This one's something slightly different. Let me get my angle right. Obviously I usually just record the films rather than record myself, not because I'm shy of being on camera or anything, it's just I sort of try and focus on showing the Blu-rays and the 4Ks rather than sort of showing me, although obviously other people do it, they're holding the film, so I guess it's good to put a face to a name, you could say. So yeah, this one I've been tagged in by Ash from Popcorn and Horror. He's one of my favourite YouTubers. He has been on a break, but he's back now. I think he's back. He's made one or two videos. So he tagged me in this one. Yeah, unfortunately, I wanted to sort of be a bit original, but I think I'm going to have to say my favourite genre is horror. Although it's a bit sort of more to it, so I'll try not to make the video too long and ramble like I usually do. But yeah, obviously you've got different genres within horror. When I did my top 15 ranking of favourite films ever, it was very hard to do, and since doing it, there's a few I thought, I should have probably included those ones, but yeah, only two of them in there were horror films, but even though not that many films in my top 15 are horror movies, the genre I sort of go to most, get most excited about when I hear there's releases or films come into the cinema, is horror. So yeah, I could say, from thriller, family, animated, drama, action, comedy. There's a few sort of films at the peak of those genres which are above maybe the best out of the horror genre, or a lot from the horror genre. But films I own the most of are from the horror genre, and yeah, films I get most excited about when they're coming out is horror. And yeah, so yeah, I'd say in the collection I've got more horror than anything. Let me flip this around and then I'll show you a little tour of them. There's a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So yeah, on the Arrow, obviously Arrow is a mix, so they do release lots of different things, so I kind of get most Arrow releases or most Arrow ones I'm interested in. See if we can get all the shelves in. I have shown all these before, so yeah, I'd say probably like 50% of these Arrow horror ones, I guess. And then if we go into the other room, check the lights on. Yeah, so then got this cabinet, which is like the special editions. So yeah, I really love these Video Nasty documentaries. It's another thing I would say about horror. The Video Nasties, when I first watched these documentaries, sort of really got me into seeking out and getting a lot of those older films, and got me into sort of first watching like extreme cinema. So yeah, obviously you've got again, these aren't all horror within this. So you've got your 101 films, your 88, Indicator, a couple like Criterion, sort of half of those are horror. Same with the Second Sight. More than half, I guess, probably horror, or like at least thriller. And then you've got some like special editions down there. So yeah, I might do a video on this Pet Sematary and the new Hitcher that I've picked up. Say Hitcher, yeah, probably more of a thriller. The Island, not watched yet, but heard a really good thing. Most of these, Steelbook, well, sort of half of them are horror. It wasn't really meant to be a collection video, it's just talking about horror, but yeah, I thought I'd show you how much of the collection is horror. So there's more sort of action, comic book movies, family movies, sort of old series, mostly a cartoon series on DVD. And then that top shelf, kind of like action, non-horror, I'd say. Right here is kind of a newer horror films. So that one I'll file away, Return of the Living Dead 3, because it can go sort of with the older classic. But yeah, majority of the newer ones I get, that's just sort of recently come out, like Sting, Abigail, First Omen, sort of put along on this shelf. So yeah, you've got one shelf of horror, two shelf of horror, a bit of horror on there. Obviously those are all Blu-ray. A few horrors on there, that's like the box sets, mostly sort of DVD. Bottom two shelves, mostly martial arts, some sort of random stuff like Football Factory, Passion of the Christ. Guess they don't really fit. Guess they're dramas. A lot of sort of TV series on the bottom shelf. A few miscellaneous things. All the Thundercats and Simpsons. See if I can get far away enough. So yeah, then you got the Tartan Asia Extreme, which sort of half of those are probably horror. And this is the foreign cinema, mostly French and stuff. So yeah, about half again horror. Those are sort of more dramas, I'd say. Like Todd Solondz, David Lynch, uh, sort of more Darren Aronofsky. Yeah, not really horrors, but quite sort of disturbing films in that category. Again, sort of non-horror. And then mostly sort of comedies on the bottom too, obviously all in DVDs. And then you've got sci-fi, mostly up on the top shelf. A couple other things in there, like Death Wish, sort of your gritty, like, action films, Taxi Driver, Bad Lieutenant, No Country for Old Men. And then this shelf is all horror. Mostly, I'd say, the kind of British stuff there, but mostly sort of more disturbing kind of horrors, I would say. Eden Lake, Mum and Dad, Cannibal Holocaust, Excision, Maniac, sure people have heard of those, but quite intense ones. And then you got your like John Carpenter and David Cronenberg section, a few miscellaneous bits. And you've got another horror shelf there, most of the older ones. Obviously these are all DVD. Another horror shelf there. Some of my really old ones, a few like Video Nasties and a few old Arrow DVDs. See if we can see the bottom. So you've got mostly Stephen King's, sort of half that shelf. I did my Stephen King ranking. And then bottom one is like really old ones. Dark Knight of the Scarecrow down there, which I've said is a classic. Omen box set. Got a few sort of ones like Dead Silence. I don't think it's a great film, but I've sort of kept it in there because it's James Wan and I do like the James Wan. So yeah, as you can see from that, and then obviously the Arrow one, I'd say like half. Let me have a quick check. So say 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5.5, 6. Yeah, I'd say about sort of 11 shelves or so out of like the 20 horror. Some are half shelves, so I kind of tried to add that up. But yeah, anyway, so back to sort of how I got into it and that. So when I was really young, my mum and dad used to watch quite a lot of horror films, especially my dad. And I wasn't really allowed to watch them when I was, say, 5. I think once I was scared at night, so I crept downstairs and was looking through. How I can bring it back to this view. Crept through into the. See if I can wedge the phone here without it falling. It's fine. Yeah, so I kind of crept into the. Wow, looked through the crack in the door and watched quite a bit of it. And even though it was scaring me, not only did I enjoy it, but also because I was scared up being in my bed, not a horror film, don't know what, Monsters or something. It was kind of a respite from what I was scared of, but it sort of made me more scared. But yeah, that was the first sort of horror I can remember coming across. And then watched, I think my dad let me watch Predator with Arnie. Maybe Terminator 2, things that weren't RoboCop, things that were not horror, but they were quite sort of intense violence. So my parents didn't mind me watching gore or even swearing. It was the kind of sex scenes or like Rudy scenes, I used to call it. They didn't like me watching. So when my bit was coming up in a certain film, I'd have to like cover my eyes, hide behind the cushion. But yeah, the thing that really got me into horror is when I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. From then, there was I think I've spoke about it before. What do you call it? Like video shop, mostly for rentals. Not far from where I live, called the Enterprise. Obviously, like a sort of Star Trek reference. And used to borrow all kind of hire all kinds of videos from the shop. But you know, there was like a children's section, like a comedy section. So yeah, I used to hire a lot of like the kind of fantasy kids ones, like Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, Flight of a Navigator, sort of films like that. And then we'd watch a few family films, but obviously a lot of those we seen on TV or we had on VHS, where we'd record our own sort of video library that was showing on TV. And I think my dad used to like have 2 video recorders, and he'd copy stuff and give it to mates. So if he got like a new sort of horror film that was good, then he'd like, probably illegal to do, I guess, but sure the police aren't coming after him now. And that was like, yeah, early 90s. So yeah, anyway, back on the topic. So yeah, when I was in Enterprise Video Shop, a lot of front covers used to catch my eye, but especially the horror films. So I guess there were so many films out, their sort of marketing tool was to try and have a really what's the word, like an original cover that kind of pulls you in, like grabs you when you first see it. So I think Ash from Popcorn and Horror, I think it was, said this, that a lot of what you see on the cover isn't always even in the film, but they just kind of make a good cover image. But yeah, as a kid, the sort of video section of all the horrors really enthralled me. So a lot of them I just found the cover really interesting. Some I kind of found really scary and I didn't like looking at them. I think the cover from Child's Play, the cover from Dolls, Dolly Dearest, because my sister was 2 years younger than me, had a lot of doll toys. I was really scared of them coming alive, even before I'd sort of seen these killer doll films. So yeah, once I started seeing front covers for those, really scared me. But it was a kind of an interesting kind of fear. So I'd look at them and sometimes I'd be like, oh, that's too much. I wish I hadn't seen that, and try and get out of my head when I got home. But I'd always still be curious and look again. So yeah, I think that's sort of where it first started. And obviously, once we started hiring them, I really enjoyed them. I remember as a kid watching these horror films, thinking you could see something in them that was so scary or gory that it would like be too much. And then once I watched lots and lots, The Odd Few had a few horrible scenes, but in general, they were never really too much where it sort of put me off. So after I'd watched, I don't know, 100, I got to realise the majority of them aren't scary. Like 1 in 100 are scary, most are funny, or they're just entertaining. But yeah, the main thing I would say about, let's put it back around this way, about horror as a genre is, I think, even if a horror film's not scary, I can still get something out of it. So, it can still be entertaining, it can still have really good gore. I think, again, similar to what Ash from Popcorn Horror said, part of it was the special effects, and I'd watch it, and obviously I knew it wasn't real, so I'd be like, how did they do that? If I think we hired the zombie flesh eaters when I was real young. I think it said cut on the front, but this had this scene in, so I can't imagine it was cut. I don't know if it was even legal, fully uncut, but the guy at the video shop knew my dad, and he'd get like stuff from behind the counter, so maybe it was uncut. But yeah, the bit when the bit of wood, spoiler alert, goes into her eye and that, obviously I knew it wasn't real, but I just couldn't understand how they did it, so that kind of interested me. But yeah, I'd say with a comedy film, if you've got a comedy that's not funny, is there much sort of worth in the film? It can still be an entertaining film, but the purpose of it is to be funny. Or the purpose of a drama is you care about the characters and their story. Purpose of an action film is you've got a lot of, obviously, action scenes. Purpose of Western, musical, whatever, is to have the sort of the main part of the genre in it. So there's probably still some comedy films that people enjoy that aren't funny, but I think a lot of those films fall flat on their face if they don't have the main archetype of their genre. Whereas, yeah, for instance, Child's Play, I don't find that scary as an adult, but I still really enjoy it as a film. So yeah, I think I get the most out of it. And then obviously so I was tempted to do like sci-fi horror as my favourite genre. So films like The Thing, obviously my favourite film ever. Things like Alien 1, Alien 2, Aliens, I guess, to a certain extent, although it's a bit of an action. Event Horizon, The Cube. I don't know if you can see those up there. They are Faculty, are sci-fi horror. So, I mean, that's one of my favourite subgenres of it, but I don't think I've got enough of it to do as my main. Yeah, sci-fi I've got like a lot of. But yeah, I think also horror mixes really well with other genres. So, obviously you can have a Western horror, a musical horror, a comedy horror, thriller kind of horror, murder mystery, drama sort of included in horror. So, for instance, Hereditary, I think, is a really good example of sort of drama horror. A lot of these sort of really disturbing French films, that's kind of... So yeah, I've always been into horror, but I think the first one I seen was like maybe Martyrs, and then I heard of like the French Extreme Wave, so obviously then I watched, I think it was Inside, then Switchblade Romance, Frontiers, The Ordeal. Actually, the first ever one I seen was Them, but it's more of a scary one than like a gory kind of disturbing one. But yeah, once I started seeking out, like I heard about a lot of these like disturbing movies and stuff, then the French Extreme Wave were not only really well made, but really pushed the boundaries. So yeah, as an adult, so as a kid, I used to like kind of fun, like, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, Child's Play, Dolls, Hellraiser. When I first seen that, I found quite strong. Didn't really understand the sort of sexual like sadism aspect, but still enjoyed it. And then yeah, really old ones like Creepshow and stuff. I mean, I guess they're more fun. And then obviously you've got your other end of the spectrum of these sort of disturbing, intense ones. And then, yeah, I started getting into a lot of this Titan Age Extreme once I started watching some of these Japanese. Yeah, obviously, I do like a lot of foreign. I was tempted as world cinema as a genre, but not really a genre, is it? It's just a location. Whereas, obviously, within world cinema, you've got your horror, your drama, your comedy, whatever. But yeah, I try not to ramble on too long. But yeah, I was hoping, because obviously Ash had done horror, I could do something a bit different. But yeah, I guess when you fall back on it, kind of is horror my favourite genre. Trying to think of anything else I wanted to say. Yeah, so I started off as these kind of light and like comedy horrors, and Evil Dead when I first seen that I found really creepy. And then I sort of, yeah, moved on to these kind of more intense, sort of dark. But yeah, I'd say my favourite really, obviously I do like sci-fi horror. There's not that many comedy horrors I really get along with. Sort of 80s horror is probably my niche. But yeah, my favourite really is slow burn kind of horrors. So ones like The Changeling, uh, the Borderlands, which is like quite a newer film. Session 9, Banshee Chapter, even like The Machinist, which isn't really a horror, but yeah, I kind of just really enjoy those slow burn where not when nothing happens you don't get a payoff. Ones that I find frustrating, kind of leave you with blue balls, but um, slow ones where they are creepy, they get under your skin, but there is stuff happening, it does have a payoff. But yeah, rather than like a kind of horror fun romp, I mean, as I said before, obviously The Thing is my favourite horror film ever, and then um, Brain Dead, one of my next favourite by Peter Jackson's like an absolute schlockfest of gore, and it is funny. It is a comedy horror, really well choreographed. But yeah, sort of as a kid, I preferred those. Whereas yeah, now I've moved on to a bit more serious, kind of dark, challenging sort of horror, and then yeah, everything in between. There's not really any subgenres of horror I don't really get along with. Obviously, there's not too many western or musicals, but I've got a few examples of those. But yeah, I mean, as always, I've rambled on for a while, but yeah, thanks for tagging me in this, Ash. I'm struck. I think I know the name of the guy that started the series. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. One last thing I would say. One boxed up there and a few ready. So Sammy G's World of Cinema, Big P, I think he's called, and Marcus X File 2708. I always forget his numbers. I've messaged them, but I will be sending your stuff off quite soon. So I've just been waiting for a few things to come. But yeah, I've rambled on enough, so I'll leave it there. But yeah, I'll upload this, and then I don't know if I can like tag myself as part of the like responses or something. Yeah, hopefully this hasn't gone on too long. I think most other people's are about 5-10 minutes, but everybody knows what I'm like. Right, thanks, bye.